I've spoken the past two nights about the incredible decision by Australia to reject the US request for a naval warship of ours to be deployed to the Red Sea to help out with an international force combating or protecting commercial shipping in that area. The Defence Minister, Richard Marles, has spoken about this today to our own Kieran Gilbert. Here's his justification.
We still have very significant capability within our Navy. This is a decision which is based on where our strategic focus must lie, and it must lie within our immediate region.
Richard Marles there. Let me bring in former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer live in the studio. Thanks for joining us again, Alexander. Richard Marles says we've got the capability. It's all about focusing on our region. And he says we've tripled our deployment of people in the headquarters in Bahrain from 5 to 16. Is this a plausible reason not to join this international action?
Well, I think it was unwise to make the point about tripling the numbers. That's just insulting to the Americans and to others to say you're increasing the number of personnel from 5 to 16. Obviously not going to make any real difference to the attacks by drones by the Houthis. Look, this has come at a terrible time for the Australian government, this decision, because no sooner has the AUKUS legislation passed through the US Congress and the US administration made a major effort to get that through, the Australian government, at the first request to help the Americans with some really important exercise, decide not to go along with it. I mean, I've always said this, you cannot expect the Americans to carry 100% of the burden. There has to be burden sharing with allies. It's not fair or it's not reasonable to get the Americans to do it all.
Well, it's not just the ship, is it? It's the fact that there's another nation there and a significant nation like Australia. Tell us how it works, because the Americans wouldn't make just some ambit request to Australia. They would ask us for something that they know we could supply.
Exactly. They know all about the Royal Australian Navy. They know its capabilities. And of course, the Navy has the capacity to deal with drone attacks. And even if they didn't have the weapons systems at the moment on board their ships, and I think they do, they could borrow those weapon systems from the British or the Americans. So there's no question about capability. This is all about politics. And this is what worries me.
Domestic politics.
It's about domestic politics. It's about making sure the Labor Party doesn't get, in particular, the Muslim population and the far left in the inner cities offside, so all those people drift away and vote away from Labor for the Greens. It's all tied up with Labor's strategy to keep votes away from the Greens. It's not anything to do with defence capability. And of course, you know, in the Pentagon and the State Department, they're not going to say anything publicly, but privately, they'll be very disappointed because Australia has always been there with America as a great ally. We need America in our region. We ask for them to contribute to our region. When they ask us to contribute one ship to the Middle East, which we have done many times, over 50 times since 1990.
Under Labor and Liberal governments.
Under Labor and Liberal. Initially, under Labor and Liberal governments, actually, during the first Gulf War, under a Labor government, under Bob Hawke. So we've been prepared to do it. Suddenly, we're not prepared to do it. Days after the AUKUS legislation passes through the US Congress, it is a very bad look.
It is a very bad look. And what's also a bad look is it's been welcomed by China.
Yes, well, that's right. The Global Times, which is a mouthpiece for the Chinese Communist Party, has said how good it is that the Australian government has done this. I mean, you know, it's just journalism, but it sends a message out. And it makes Australia a kind of second-class ally, because it's not as though we're making a major contribution like the Germans and the Poles and so on are in the Ukraine war, and you can understand that. But when the Americans are going to need help right around the world to try to stabilise the world, and we've got to be prepared to help them.
All right, I just want to get you on another issue. It's kind of fortuitous because I know you're heading off to Melbourne tomorrow, but we've talked about this convicted terrorist, a hell of a threat to this country, Abdul Ben Brika. He's been freed. He's under control orders. A lot of people in this country worried that he's a free man and worried that these control orders only last 12 months. A cute little reaction in Melbourne today. The MC, remembering, of course, he led a plot that was aiming to blow up the MCG on grand final day. Well, the MCG has banned him. They said he's not welcome to turn up to any footy or cricket matches. Have a listen to the MCG.
If we feel like there's a threat and, we've got a patron that has a bad history, we can stop them coming in. So there's a whole lot of mechanisms. I don't want to give you all of our security detail, but it's important that we keep everyone safe, and it's a high priority for us.
It is hardly surprising, is it, Alexander? They don't want him at the MCG.
Well, it's very good news because on Boxing Day, I'm going to the MCG to the Boxing Day test against Pakistan, and I'm delighted that Ben Brika won't be there.
Indeed. Well, safe travels and thanks for joining us both tonight and throughout the year.
Yeah, well, Merry Christmas.
Alexander Downer there, former Foreign Minister. I used to work for him. That declaration, I'll chuck that in every now and then because some of you might not realise that.